So we have Frankie, correct?
Yes, Frankie.
So before we get started, I put on the website and I put on the consultation form, but we start recording training sessions, Zoom sessions, and consultations.
Okay.
Okay. So it seems like some potty issues. Yeah, peeing in the house, and then like obedience or better obedience. Is that correct?
Yeah. So his peeing in the house situation, he doesn't like when things get moved. So, for example, we were cleaning out a bedroom one day and he got really upset and then just peed everywhere. The same situation happened when my boyfriend moved in. There was stuff everywhere and he just constantly was peeing. So I think, I don't know if it's an anxious thing that maybe he thinks we're leaving or something. But those are the couple times that he has done that. And then just sometimes for attention, I've had people over before and he's just like peed on the floor.
Does he just stand there and pee, or does he like lift up his leg or anything?
He doesn't lift his leg. He just stands there and pees and looks at everyone.
When he's done this, is it yellow pee or clear?
Usually it's clear.
Okay. That's a sign of overhydration.
Okay.
Drinking too much water.
Okay.
So, what kind of food does he eat right now?
So he's on Purina Pro Plan lamb and rice.
Does he drink a lot of water?
Honestly, he doesn't drink a lot of water. Like he does throughout the day, but it's not like he's sitting there at the bowl for a long period of time.
Does he ever lap up a lot of water at once?
Not unless we've taken him outside, like if he's gone to the park or something, that's when he'll do that. But on a day-to-day basis, no.
Okay. Yeah, so clear pee is typically a sign of overhydration.
Okay.
The reason why I asked about your food is because there's some higher end foods that dehydrate dogs.
Okay.
Not so much because they're bad foods, but because they're so high in protein that the dogs need to, a byproduct of protein is ammonia, so the dog has to flush out the ammonia. Plus, kibble is a dehydrator. Okay. So that those two things combined can lead to excessive drinking of water, which then leads to potty mistakes. In regards to the peeing in the house stuff, how often would you say, and aside from when it's not in response to like something happening and it's just like him peeing, how often does that happen?
Not ever, to be honest with you. Like I can leave him here for 8 hours by himself and he won't have an accident or anything like that. So he doesn't do that. He also will pee sometimes, like before he's getting a bath. He hates baths. So his jerk reaction sometimes, and that's when it's been yellow pee before.
Okay. Yeah. So that just sounds like a stress response. Okay. So same thing with the moving stuff around. I believe that's also a stress response as well. Which just means like, so I guess in a human context, I don't know if you've ever seen like on TV or something when someone's getting mugged and they just pee themselves.
Sure. Yeah.
It's similar, except he's more heightened. And how long has he been doing that for?
I've had him since he was a puppy, so he's kind of done it ever since he was little, to be honest with you.
How old is he now?
3.
3. Okay. And as a puppy, he would do it like in response to something, like. Okay. Does he seem skittish at all?
No.
Nervous, anxious?
Anxious when I leave. So like when I go downstairs to go get something, he'll cry at the door. One time my boyfriend was playing, like they were running around and playing hide and seek and he hid from Frank. And Frank was just kind of like looking around everywhere. And then just all of a sudden like looked at me and peed. So he's just like, I don't know. He's sensitive and just doesn't like when things like aren't his way.
Okay. What else?
The other thing, so he doesn't do well on a harness.
Okay.
So I went to another trainer just like talked to another trainer maybe a year ago, and he told me to try out the prong collar. So I was using the harness for like a year, and he just pulls like crazy. So the past couple months I've reintroduced the prong collar into walking, and it changes the way that he behaves when we're outside. So I'm in huge favor of the prong collar because it works. But the only thing is that I don't know, like, is it a long-term thing, or how can I get it to the point where I can put the harness back on him without, the prong collar there. So I don't know how to make that transition work.
Okay. Anything else?
And then the other things are just simple, like he knows how to sit, he does know how to lay down, he doesn't know how to heel or stay. So just little like basic things. I took him to training when he was a puppy, and he got basic 101 puppy training. He was very stubborn as a puppy in training class, but the other thing is that he's very treat motivated. So he's easy to get his attention when it comes to food. So that's super helpful. So I think he'll be able to figure it out that way. So yeah, I just want to like when we're eating dinner, I want to tell him to go lay down, and he'll go lay down on the couch. Like he won't sit or go lay on his bed, and he won't sit at my feet and beg. But other than that, he's a really friendly dog. He's not aggressive at all. Super friendly with other dogs, like, and people. He's not scared of anyone. So it's nothing like dramatic with him.
Okay. When you introduced the prong collar, did he freak out at all?
No, he does not like the prong collar. So at first when I introduced it, he didn't freak out or anything. Now sometimes he'll like lay down when I go to put it on him. He doesn't. I just don't think he likes it. So I don't know if that's a sign of him being skittish, or being nervous about the collar.
So have you ever seen him pee in response to the prong?
No, he's never peed in response to the prong.
Okay. And then did you work with the trainer on the prong, or they spoke to you about it and then you went off and did it yourself?
So he had Frenchies at his facility, and he showed me like how to use them. So he showed me how to put them on and what size I should get them. And so it was very like it's just like a kind of little 101.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's really it with him.
So the most complicated thing here is the peeing. Typically with stuff like this, we always go back to the basics, which is potty training. And I know you say you can leave him home for 8 hours and stuff, but it's more so like monitoring water intake. When he does have, like, let's say you have guests come over and he does pee and it's clear, I go, okay, it's 4 p.m. Last time I took him out was like 10 a.m. Right? Just trying to get a feel for, like what could cause it, because that's really kind of.
He does also take Apoquel for allergies. So I wonder, could the allergy medicine make him do that at all?
You'd have to look at the side effects.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that drug
okay.
or that medication, but it's worth looking into.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I would, or even asking your vet.
Yeah.
But you said he's done it since he was a puppy. So has he always taken Apoquel since a puppy, or?
He's been on Apoquel for 2 years. So the first year he was not taking it until after a year, when he started to develop just allergies to a lot of things.
But he'd been doing this behavior since he was a puppy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So chances are it's not the medication then, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing I always do with anything like this is always just go back to the basics so that we know, like, okay, it's not this stuff. Okay. So we got to start crossing things off the list. Watching water intake, controlling when he gets water, and then making sure he's getting the appropriate number of outings, which 3 is the standard.
I'm taking him out like 4 times a day because I'm home. So since last year, he's been going out 4 times a day.
Gotcha. So the reason why I put them to 3 is because it's really just teaching them how to hold. Like my dogs will hold it for like upwards of 24 to 36 hours. Not because I make them, but like, let's say it's raining. Like my dogs hate going out in the rain. They'll like look and like, nah, we're okay. And then they'll just like go and sleep, and they'll just like literally not. So I don't bother even taking them out because I know they're not going to go. But they have the capacity to hold it for that long, you know. And then I'm so busy sometimes I'm gone the entire day that they'll get an outing in the morning and an outing in the evening, and that's it. So unless it's something like they're sick, like diarrhea or whatever, like they don't have any mistakes. So making sure that it's nothing related to not being able to hold it, because like a lot of people do like the ring the bell type of thing, and that teaches dogs to go when they have to go, which isn't good because they're not learning how to hold it and go to the human's schedule. When it comes to the peeing in response to stuff, that's more, I would say it's kind of like a nervous response. And it's one of a couple of things. One, exposing them to these things like this desensitization, where he just stops caring about them. Or 2, putting them under pressure where he's going to go under a lot of stress in order to learn how to overcome it. Okay, so that the things that are super mundane that would stress him out before wouldn't stress him out anymore. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. When it comes to your harness and the prong stuff, okay, so harnesses are made for pulling. Okay, harnesses actually can incentivize more pulling. So dogs have this thing called opposition reflex, which is when they feel pressure, they go against it. Okay, so if you pull forward, they pull backward, you pull backward, they pull forward, you pull left, they pull right, you pull right, they pull left. Okay. This is just a natural instinct to them. This is not them just being stubborn. It's just they literally can't help it. Okay. So when you put a harness on a dog, and then it's, especially if it's a front, not a front, a back clip harness where it's on the front, they can put all their chest into it. As it creates, it can double or triple the intensity of whatever it is they're doing. Okay, so if he's excited, he's walking outside, he's like 2 to 3 times more excited. You know, if a dog becomes reactive or aggressive, they become 2 to 3 times more reactive and aggressive, feeling tension. Okay, so harnesses aren't a training tool. Harnesses are so that your dog can pull a sled, your dog can pull a tire, you know, your dog can pull something. That's what, or you know, that's what it's meant for. It has no training purpose. The reason why you see it being promoted that way is because marketing wise, it's easier to sell someone something that makes them think they're not like hurting their dog, right? Now, smaller dogs is a little bit different, like Yorkies, who are known for having tracheas known to collapse. You know, we put a harness because we don't want any pressure on the trachea. I get that stuff, right? However, that's like a, you know, they could be like an 8 to like a 15-pound dog or whatever. Training wise, it still doesn't provide any value. It just removes pressure off the trachea. Okay. So a lot of puppies get put on a harness because nobody wants to, you know, put anything evil on their puppy, or they don't want the puppy to gag when they pull, so they put them on a harness. But there's no training value there. Even if they say like no pull harness, which is the front clip type,
they'll still pull.
Yeah, it's an oxymoron. It's harnesses are made for pulling. When it comes to your prong collar, and you're talking about like getting them conditioned off the prong collar, right? That's where things get complicated.
Okay.
So I know what makes things in dog training confusing is that training in when you hear the word dog training, it creates this picture of at some point we're done. Okay, and that's technically not true. Okay, so if you have a job and they're like, hey, we're going to give you a promotion and we're going to train you for 2 weeks. Okay. And then after you're done for those 2 weeks, you're gonna have a 2-week trial period. And then once you've passed your trial period, you're gonna be promoted and you get a raise. Okay. Is you can go off, you can take that training. And when you come back in your trial period, you can apply that training, right? Proactively, right? Or maybe you didn't do so well with the training and you decide, I'm going to put more time into this so I can develop the skill so I can get that raise, right? Again, proactively. Dogs don't do that. Dogs don't learn, hey, you taught me how to walk nicely on the leash, so I'm going to do that. You know, oh, you taught me how to like lay in the bed and not move for 2 hours when people come over. I'm going to do that, right? Dogs do it because you told them to. And then the next thing is, can you make them do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the prong collar, I know it's called like, it's a training collar or whatever. But it's for me, when it comes to training with these tools, whenever you remove the motivator, whether it's positive or negative, performance will always dip. That's just the way of the world. Okay. So like if you're doing food-based training, if you remove the food, the incentivizer, and the dog's like, oh, there's no chicken or there's no treat, I'm not going to sit then because I'm not going to get paid, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the negative. In this case, we'll call it the prong. If there's no consequence for not performing the behavior, why should the dog perform the behavior? Okay. So this is where we start to get into opportunistic behavior. It's completely normal. It's all animals have it, including humans. Opportunistic behavior is, if we look at instinctually in the animal world, if there's a pond of water and there's an alligator or threat in the water, and the animals are aware of it, they won't drink the water. Okay. If they see that threat leave, you'll see the animals come in to drink the water. And when the threat comes back, you'll see them disperse. Okay. That's an opportunity, right? They saw an opportunity to drink the water safely and they took it. And when the threat came back, they go, now we leave. Okay.
Yeah.
For humans, do you drive?
Yeah.
Do you go on the expressway?
Yeah.
Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Most people don't go the speed limit, right?
Yeah.
So when you see a squad car, what happens?
We slow down.
Right. And then when you pass a squad car, what happens?
We speed up.
It's opportunistic behavior.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So even as humans, and we know better, we are self-aware, we are aware of the laws that are in existence. We still press boundaries when we know we can get away with it. Okay. So think of your prong collar or whatever training collar that may be aversive as a cop on a collar, right? When it's present, your dog's going to behave better. You're going to have much more control. When it's not present, your dog's going to push the boundaries. Okay. So that's just like the way things are. Same thing for humans. I mean, if you're working and your job decides to stop paying you, are you going to keep working?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Right. Same thing for the dog. So if you remove any motivator, whether it's a positive or negative, but good or bad, performance will always dip. Now, people often argue like, well, Jesse, I saw a dog on like YouTube and it was doing all these crazy things and didn't need a treat or whatever, or didn't have a collar on. I'm like, all right, but what was the context? Is it an empty room? Is it outside in an empty field? Is it on a street where there's nothing going on? Because that's almost always the context, right? Plus, the person could have done a bunch of stuff beforehand with food or the e-collar or the prong collar, and then took everything off and then did the video.
Sure.
Now the dog's in that mindset, right? So, or it's a dog that belongs to a trainer who's trained that dog since they were 2 months old, thousands of hours of training, right? It's like my dogs are off leash trained and I can have them off leash trained without their training equipment. And they're like 80 to 90% spot on, but there's still a 10 to 20% dip in performance because the motivator is not there. Okay.
Right.
So, does that all make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So here, when it comes to I'm going to talk about what you're needing and wanting, how I approach things, the methods that I use, how I try to address this, because it seems like the peeing is kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it maybe happens like once a month, maybe every other month. Like, I don't know, it's anytime there's something that he doesn't like, and I bathe him pretty frequently, so I've tried different ways to like get around it because I know he'll instinctively pee. Like I put him in the bathtub beforehand or I take him out beforehand, so I know he won't, at least it'll mitigate him doing it.
Sure, like you take him to the potty first, then you bring him inside.
Yeah.
Sure, gotcha. Okay. So before reaching out, did you do research on us and how we train?
I had done some research. Yeah, I did like the fact that you were in favor of the prong collar, and you do use the electric collar too. Which I don't think he needs that, but I mean, I'm gonna leave that up to your discretion. But I did like how you trained. I watched some of your videos.
Okay. So I train pretty much with just the e-collar. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll explain why, and then we'll take it from there. So the remote collar, are you familiar with what the technology is?
I've seen them in use. Like I've seen people use them on their dogs before.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people who use it for behavior things, like if they don't want them on the couch. And I've seen it used for training stuff. So
yeah. Are you familiar with what it does? Like how it works?
It's just like a little shock, right?
So shock makes it seem like you're electrocuting your dog.
Or like a pinch. Yeah.
A pinch?
Yeah, maybe like a pinch. I don't know.
Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
Yeah.
Have you had stim therapy?
No.
It's the machine that moves the muscles.
No, I haven't had that.
Okay, so it's called a TENS unit, TENS. You can go to Walgreens and look in the back section, and you'll see what looks like a little bone, and you put on your back, and it moves your muscles to help either ease back pain or ease muscle tension.
Mm-hmm.
That's an e-collar.
Got it.
Okay. So an e-collar is a muscle stimulator. It's not a shock. I could agree with like a pinch type of sensation.
Okay.
If you've ever seen like when they recreate labor contraction pains in men.
I've seen those videos. Yeah.
Yeah. That's technically an e-collar.
Got it. Okay.
But they're recreating labor contraction pains, right? So it's still a muscle stimulator, but they're operating at a higher level because they're trying to recreate the discomfort of a labor contraction, right? So that's an e-collar as well.
Got it.
So when it comes to this, the reason why I use remote collar is prong is a great tool, but it takes too much technical skill.
Got it.
Okay, so like you have to like to some degree become a trainer, so to speak, to know how to use it effectively. Okay. The other problem with the prong is that if you remove the prong, like let's say you're at the park and you take the prong off and he's off leash, you have no means of reinforcing anything. Okay, so like the most important command would then be the recall. So that's why I do remote collar, because on or off leash I have control.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And my rate is the same. Like we don't have different rates for things unless it's a puppy under 6 months, which we only do Zoom stuff because it's like so simple.
Sure.
But my rate is the same, and I use only remote collar because it keeps everything consistent. I know what I can get done with a remote collar within a time frame, as long as the owner is doing their homework. Okay.
Yep.
And that's what people are. And I tell people, like, when we train your dog, like you're training your dog for life. This isn't like you have to keep coming back type of thing so that we keep doing maintenance stuff. As long as the owner does the exercises and is using it correctly, we've trained the dog essentially for life. Okay. So unless they want to teach the dog new skills, they're pretty much set to go. So the remote and prong collar are similar in the sense that they both deliver pressure. Okay. So the prong collar is meant to look like or mimic a dog bite. Okay. So like if you pull up on the prong and you would feel it, he puts his butt down, you would release that. Right. So that's what we would call prong pressure. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the remote collar is the pressure is actually the contraction. Okay. And as long as I need the dog to perform something, I keep the contraction going to communicate to them that they need to do something. And then once they give me the response I'm looking for, I turn off the pressure. Okay. So pressure is like one of the best ways that dogs learn. Humans also learn with pressure. So growing up, we had peer pressure. If you're on the expressway, have you ever had someone like drive real close to your bumper?
Yeah.
Right. And it makes you feel a certain way. And you might speed up, you might switch lanes, you might not do anything, or you might brake check. Right. all those are responses to the fact that they put spatial pressure on you. Okay. Whether or not it's the response they were looking for is a totally different thing, but they're putting pressure to make you feel a certain way to motivate you to do something. Okay. So, same thing for dogs. When they feel pressure, we want to teach them that there's a way to turn it off if he does something. Okay. So, we shape all the commands: heel, sit, stay, down, come, place, stay, using pressure to make it mean something. Excuse me. To make it mean something to the dog, so that when we give the command, the dog actually performs it. So the difference is with an e-collar, it doesn't require you to become like a dog trainer. It's actually super simple to learn. Okay. So, sorry, I'm been talking all day.
No, you're fine. Don't worry. Take your time.
So with the e-collar, it's all verbal instruction now. I don't even need to touch the dog.
Wow.
I coach you through teaching your dog, right? So if you watch our YouTube videos, if you go to a lesson 1, you'll see from the beginning of the video where the dog will be crazy to the end where the dog is under control. And it's all me verbally coaching the owner. So it requires the least amount of skill to use. A lot of it's just common sense. The exercises are super simple. You don't need to have technical skill. So like the prong collar, you have to have technical skill to use it correctly. With the e-collar, it's just press a button. Okay. You have to do certain things when you press the button, but they're super simple and they make sense to people. So when they have to recreate or practice them on their own, it's easy to do so. Plus, right off the bat, if you're using it correctly, you're going to have immediate results.
Okay.
So I train for the real world. I train for people walk their dogs to the park. They let dogs off leash to go play with other dogs. A lot of people let their dogs off in unenclosed areas here in the city. And we want to know that we have control. So that's what I train for. So how this could potentially relate to the peeing in the house, okay, is that your dog would most likely shut down when he feels the e-collar. When we see a dog shut down, we tend to want to stop. I don't. I work the dog through it, okay? But he has to make the decision to move. So if he like lays down, he's going, hey, this is too much for me. I can't handle it. If we ease the pressure, he now learns he doesn't have to do it. Now we have unreliable obedience.
Yeah.
So instead, if he shuts down, he's not doing anything bad, but I want to incentivize him to move forward. Is the collar level would keep going up in the contraction and the intensity until eventually he goes, hey, I don't like this, but I can't override it. I need to do something to turn this off. And you'll see him pop forward and start walking. We then immediately take off the pressure. All right. We dip it back down again. He might shut down again. We put the pressure on. We start to raise it and he pops forward again. So his brain is saying, I can't do this, but we're making him do it through pressure. So then he learns that he can do it and it opens the dog up. It actually builds confidence. Okay. And it's hard for people to understand building confidence with an aversive tool, but it's the way that we apply it. It's the way that we use it. Okay. We're not punishing him for not moving. We're starting low and we continue to go up on the collar until eventually he goes, all right, I'm going to need to do something about this. But then he thinks he did it ultimately. He doesn't know it's us manipulating him with the collar. Okay. So how this could potentially indirectly work with the peeing is you're putting him under stress. He says, I can't do this. You work him through it. He pops forward. He goes, oh, I can do this. And it toughens him up. So dogs' primary form of language is physicality. And that's how they toughen up their puppies. Like you'll see like a mom like come into the litter. If she's got a weak puppy, she'll poke and prod at it and nip at it and bite at it. And it'll cry and it'll wince and all that stuff. She's toughening up the puppy. Okay. But people don't do that. People don't give their puppy physicality. So then the puppy like loses themselves. That's why dogs have so many issues. One of the most common issues I get is overstimulation, which is almost always a lack of formal boundaries. Okay, meaning discipline, physicality. Okay, so when physicality is applied correctly and appropriately, you're toughening up the dog again. So when I get a lot of fear-based dogs or like nervous, anxious dogs that are like super skittish, people are like, oh, you can't correct them because they're just going to make it worse. I go, yeah, if you do it the wrong way.
Sure.
But when you do it correctly, you toughen them up, right? So here, when we put them under pressure and work them through it, it's teaching them how to handle stress and that he can work through it. Okay. Now, it's I'm going to say, I don't want to say it's a long shot because I don't think it's a long shot, but I mean, there's a chance it also just does nothing. Okay. Because the other thing that I'm thinking of is that that's why I asked earlier, when you expose him to the prong, did he pee? Okay. Because he may pee in response to the collar. Okay. But now we have something that we can expose him to consistently to work him through that. Okay. Because that was the other thing I was thinking earlier. I'm like, when I said you would have to repeatedly expose them to desensitize them so that we wouldn't have that response. Okay. So if it works, there's a number of ways that it could work. But there's also a chance that it couldn't work. Okay. And it's kind of for me like a 50-50 type of thing, right? But we would do this in conjunction with potty training basic stuff as well. Okay. To see if we can come up with an answer for the peeing inside the house. The obedience type stuff just comes down to how much control do you want over your dog? And that's the easy part. Okay. Because your dog, you said, is a social guy, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's just control, which is teaching him to do stuff, walking at your side without pulling, coming when you call him, type stuff. Yeah. So it's really the peeing in the house that's like the most complicated part.
Okay? Yeah, it's. Why are you looking at me? My boyfriend's here too.
Sorry, I came late. How you doing, man?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Duncan, nice to meet you.
Hey, Jesse.
Sorry, I was doing some work. I missed the peeing stuff, but
I talked about how when he's anxious, when things move around and he pees, that's what we were talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah, the peeing thing was pretty rare.
Well, so you've only lived with him.
Well, since I've lived here, it's happened once.
Yeah. Since he moved in last October, it happened once. Well, he did it again when other people were here. Okay. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, because I've obviously had Frank since he was a baby. It's more prevalent when I've seen him do it more often. So.
Sure. When it comes to control, what would your life with Frankie look like?
I would just, honestly, I would like him, like I said, when we're eating dinner or I want him out of the kitchen, I want to just tell him like, go lay down, and he stays there. He doesn't try to come back in. Or if he's like, sometimes he barks at the door when people are around, and I just want to tell him like, stop it, go lay down, and he'll just stop and go lay down. That's kind of what my ideal situation would be with him.
Okay. So we have walking, correct? Like with no pulling?
Yes, no pulling would be ideal too.
Okay. And then we have what we would call the place command. Mm-hmm. What about like, is he ever off leash anywhere?
No. We've never even thought about it.
Because you're afraid he may run away, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm afraid he's going to play the game, like to chase him.
Sure. So in dog training, in my opinion, two most important things are walk with me or heel, and then come when I call you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So with everything that you've described and what I'm hearing, because I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs, which is 1 class a week for an hour, is you're probably like in the 6 class range.
Okay.
Okay. So it would be 2 classes on the heel. And then we want to see, which is going to take time, because if him peeing in the house is rare, we won't really know. Right?
Yeah.
2 classes on the heel. And I would touch upon like the just real basic potty training stuff as well, just to start that process. By the 3rd class, I would jump into recall, which is the come when called, because recall tends to take the longest to teach, because you got to go to the park, pop Frankie on a leash, let him be a dog, and then practice calling him back. Heel is the fastest because people tend to walk their dogs 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So that's the fastest thing we teach. The 4th class, I'd probably go into place command, which is the stationary control that you're talking about when guests come over, or like when you're eating dinner or whatever. The 5th class, the 5th and 6th class would probably be like just kind of variables. We'll touch on like and I would be touching on the behavioral stuff, like the potting, the peeing, or whatever, every time I see you. But then anything else behaviorally, we could talk about. Otherwise, classes 5 and 6, if everything is going well, would just be, let's just teach more stuff, because you like yours is like super minor behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see if we put them on a more structured water intake, plus putting him under pressure to see how he handles stress.
Mm-hmm.
What does that fix? Okay.
Yeah.
We might even see in the beginning an influx of peeing.
Okay.
Because you're putting them under more pressure.
Okay.
So then we want to see, it's not uncommon for stress to go up in the beginning because the e-collar is a stressor. But as you repeatedly expose them to it, that's what helps them get over it. So like, have you guys ever been skydiving?
I have.
Was it stressful?
Not for me, but I would consider myself a rare case.
It looks stressful.
So for like the average person.
Yeah.
But if you were to go skydiving every day,
yeah,
you'd get over that real quick, because you're exposing yourself to that stressor repeatedly, right? As opposed to once a year. So same thing with this guy, 3 times a day, every time you walk him every day, he's getting exposed to it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then if I see him trying to shut down or like become like avoidant of it, we work him through it. It's like, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And we essentially kind of toughen him up and see how does that also impact him. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that would typically like stress him out, like you said, like loading him in the bathtub or something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We really start pushing these things. Okay. Questions about any of that so far?
No, I think that's great. That's kind of what I was thinking, but again, you're the professional, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and again, with the peeing, like it's I can see it happening, but at the same time, it's just unfortunately, like if something just happens,
yeah,
right, it's the organicness of like, just like, well, that happened, and he's like, okay, I'm peeing myself,
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like something like with the remote collar, you might see in the beginning he pees, but then he gets over it because it's controlled context, it's repeated.
Yeah.
It's something that he gets used to on a daily basis, as opposed
it's tricky with the peeing, because it's probably related to the fact that it always has to do with like having people or another dog over, which is also a rare thing.
Yeah.
So it's like we're only talking about like a rare subset of time to begin with, and then only some of those times might he actually pee. So it's like, yeah.
How is he like, does he seem like super excited when people come over, or is he like?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Very excited.
Happy. Like it's not like he loves to see people. It just doesn't happen very often. So it's an excited thing.
Yeah. So that can also be overstimulation.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. Which is like kind of the opposite of like something happening and spooking him. Is
the
excitement that he just can't.
Definitely. And the only time he actually peed here while I was here was when there was another dog staying with us that was smaller and more rambunctious and just working him up. over and over and over again.
We also peed when you were playing hide and seek with him.
Yeah, sorry, that's true.
Yes.
Twice. Yeah, the other time was when I was playing with him and he was very excited. So yeah.
And that one where he was playing with the other dog could have also been just too much activity.
Sure.
And the other dog had peed too.
Yeah, so we don't know if it was like a territory thing. She was in his territory. So
Yeah, there are a lot of factors.
Yeah, so those are all things that, the next time you have a dog come over, like that we factor in.
Yeah.
So that we can be a step ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. How much does Frankie weigh?
34 pounds.
Okay. So the collar that I would recommend for you is the Dogtra 280C. And Maria would give you this information.
Okay.
It's meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
Okay.
Okay. And then when it comes to like your prong, like you can use it in conjunction with the remote collar. I tend to just do remote collar because at the end of the day, like if he's off leash, you're not going to be having that leash anyways. Okay. Right. So I try to condition people as much as possible to become reliant on their remote than they are on the leash, because then it builds bad habits.
Yeah.
Because our first instinct is almost always grab the dog. But if he's off leash, you're not going to be able to grab him. And if you try to chase him, you're just going to send your dog off running further. Okay. So, I mean, this is kind of straightforward in terms of the obedience stuff. It's just the peeing thing that's just kind of the big variable there. Mm-hmm. Any questions?
So,
my only questions were going to be about the prong collar, but it sounds like it won't be much of an issue anymore. Because my only question was, how do you sort of transition to not using it anymore? Sounds like if we're just using that electric one, it kind of solves that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you have it when you need it.
Yeah.
If he's going to be on a walk, if he's going to be off leash anywhere, it's on. If he's a great dog inside the house, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets really worked up when people come over and you want to have control. You have it on, and then once he settles down, you don't need it. Okay. So like in his case, like you might have it on for the first 15 minutes that someone is there, just to have control over that kind of overstimulation. And then once everything settles in and like the kind of the novelty of someone coming over is passed, you can then remove it. Okay.
So in the meantime, then would you recommend continuing to walk him with like what's it called? The harness, or just a regular collar?
I wouldn't do regular collar. I would either do the harness or the prong. I mean, the harness is he's going to pull, but it doesn't. There's no, because people always ask like, oh, should I start training with my harness? I'm like, it's not going to help you. Yeah. Other questions?
Did you bring up the fireworks stuff?
Oh, I didn't bring up the firework thing. He has a big fear of fireworks. And last summer we had an incident where he broke off his leash because he was so scared. So anytime, like, even if we'll be inside, doors are shut and there's fireworks going off, he will run under the bed and hide there for maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. And then he'll eventually come back out.
So I guess it's not like an issue so much as like, I don't know if that's even something that can be addressed or not.
It's like what we deal with once a year for the full month.
For the whole summer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Starting
you can't make him like fireworks.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
No.
So like my pit hates fireworks as well.
Okay.
So there's not so much like remedying that as there is like helping them through it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're outside with Frankie and fireworks are going off, now that's a different thing.
Right. That's that.
Yeah. And those are situations like we're just outside and it goes off in the alley. We're walking past like.
Right. And he just wants to get home very quickly at that point.
He starts to like.
That's when it starts to get a little dangerous, I would say.
Yeah. So in that kind of context, we can work with it. However, he's like, you can get him under more control, but you're not going to get him back under complete passive control.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like my pit, like it's happened to me a couple times in Logan Square when walking where someone just blow up a random firework.
Yeah.
And you'll see where she gets really anxious.
Yeah.
And for the remainder of that walk, you can just see how scatterbrained she is. She just knows to hold because of the remote collar. It helps her kind of counter herself.
Okay.
But she's very clearly under stress. Okay. So what I would do is as a precaution, him not to run away from you when he hears the firework, if anything, to run to you. Okay. That is something that we can do. So in case if he were to ever be off leash and someone were to set off a random firework, he wouldn't run away. He would run to you ideally.
Okay.
So that's something that we can do. I'm confident that, and I could like, if we don't cover it within the 6 classes, I can literally explain it to you. And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah. But in regards to like inside the home and stuff, if you have a kennel or whatever for him, my pit, that's her place. Is she just goes in the kennel and she just makes herself into a little cove, and I'll just cover it over and just like let her, deal with it that way.
Creating a sanctuary for him, essentially.
Yeah, as of safe of a place as you can,
Yeah.
and then just let them ride it out. But unfortunately, you can't, like a kid, we can explain like that's just a firework and this and that.
Sure.
Get over that. But for a dog, they're just like, that's a big boom and I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's not a toughening up option. That's like a soft moment kind of thing.
It's because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
You got a taste of him barking because he heard someone outside the door.
That's what he does. He'll just like bark if he hears someone in the hallway.
Yeah, and that stuff you can correct too. That's easy.
Yeah.
Over that within that time frame as well. So the only thing here would be I'm super busy.
Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah, that's exciting for you.
I believe from what I heard from Maria is that we're booking in July now.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to do like in person with me, she would take care of that. She would ask for your availability, which is the easiest way to book. And then she just cross-references with my calendar and finds where she can place you. There's currently a 5 to 7 day turnaround. So like it was like a 5 to 7 day turnaround for booking the consultation, but then also the booking the training or onboarding, because she has people in front of you, right? So she's got to work through all those people, and then she's like, okay, now you're up next for me to give you your time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, but I mean, this isn't anything that is, I mean, he's already been doing it for 3 years. So like waiting a little bit longer is not going to make any difference. So she will help you with scheduling all that stuff. Any other questions?
No, I think I'm fully on board for all of this. I think it will make a huge difference for him. So
yeah, control wise and all that other stuff, it's going to make a huge difference, and you'll be able to do more with him.
Yeah.
Because you'll have the ability to have him off leash and let him run around and all that stuff, and not worry about like,
that'll be huge.
We hadn't even considered that.
We've never even talked about letting him off leash.
Yeah, with the place command, I mean, you could even go to a restaurant with him and have him just laying there.
That would be nice.
So it gives people so much freedom. It's just the way that they perceive the training tool is what kind of screws things up. If you want to learn more about that, like I said, just go to our YouTube channel. Lesson ones are always good to watch because no one knows what they're doing, and you can see how that process works. Otherwise, it's pretty much it. Maria would get in contact with you with the call that you would need, and then also just like the onboarding process. Okay.
Well,
anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, if you guys forget anything or forgot to ask anything, just shoot Maria an email. She'll get back to you. Otherwise, she'll get in touch with you. Don't be discouraged if you don't hear from her in a couple of days or whatever.
Sure.
Feel free to send an email if you'd like. Otherwise, she'll get in contact with you. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.